Alexander Reed's heart pounded in his chest as the taxi screeched to a halt. Outside the towering glass walls of his penthouse, the streets of Manhattan, slick with the fading drizzle of the afternoon rain, blurred past him as he practically leaped out, tossing a handful of bills to the driver without even waiting for change. He didn't care about the money, didn't care about the late hour, or the judgmental glances of the cab driver. All that mattered was seeing Lucas, his son. It had been a week since Alexander had last held him. 7 days might seem inconsequential to someone buried in deadlines and board meetings, but for a father who had watched his world unravel in an instant, those 7 days were a lifetime. 2 years ago, a tragic accident had taken his wife, leaving Alexander alone to navigate the jagged edges of a life that had once seemed full of promise. Now, Lucas was the thread keeping him tethered to hope. Yet that thread had begun to fray under the weight of the boy's illness. The elevator doors glided open, revealing the polished marble of his penthouse lobby. The doorman offered a polite nod, but Alexander barely acknowledged it, his mind a whirlwind of anticipation and fear. He could hear the faint sound of laughter from above, the kind of laughter that seemed almost unreal in the sterile quiet that had dominated his home since his wife's passing. His steps grew faster, echoing against the marble as he neared the heavy wooden door to his apartment. Then came the sound that made him freeze, a laughter so bright, so unrestrained. It stopped him in his tracks. It wasn't just Lucas's laugh. It was accompanied by another, unfamiliar yet soothing, full of warmth and tenderness. Alexander's chest tightened. He had not heard such joy in months, not since that long-ago evening when the hospital corridors were silent, and he felt utterly powerless. Slowly, almost cautiously, he turned the door handle, fearing that any sudden movement might shatter the magic that seemed to spill out from inside. What he saw stopped him cold. Lucas sat on the floor, surrounded by scattered toys and colorful drawings pinned to the walls, a small universe Alexander had longed to see thriving again. And in front of him stood a woman, someone he had met only recently, her presence almost ethereal in the soft glow of the room. Her long chestnut hair framed her face, but something was different. Locks of hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders, yet there was a sense of transformation about her. She knelt beside Lucas, holding his tiny hands gently. Her eyes locked on his with a warmth that radiated courage and unwavering care. Lucas's laughter echoed through the room as he clapped, his eyes sparkling with excitement. The woman smiled, her hands covered in paint from the creative chaos they had made together, and whispered words that Alexander could barely hear. The way Lucas responded, the way he laughed without fear, without the usual fatigue that illness had imposed on him, it was a sight that both terrified and relieved Alexander. He realized, in that instant, that this woman had done something extraordinary, something beyond the duties of a caregiver. She had given his son joy, hope, and a moment of normalcy that no medication or treatment could provide. Alexander felt an ache in his chest, a mix of awe and disbelief. How could someone so new to their lives have such a profound impact? And yet, there it was, undeniable and breathtaking. He wanted to step forward, to rush into the room and scoop Lucas into his arms, but something held him back. A quiet part of him urged patience, to savor this unguarded happiness for a few more precious seconds. The sight of his son laughing freely, without the shadow of illness looming over him, was worth waiting for. It reminded him that life, even in its most fragile state, could still surprise him with moments of beauty and resilience. Alexander finally stepped into the room, his presence making Lucas look up in delight. The woman turned her gaze toward him, calm and unwavering, and for a moment, the three of them were suspended in a bubble of shared warmth and understanding. The room felt alive, filled with energy and love, a stark contrast to the sterile, lonely days Alexander had endured alone. It was in that instant, standing at the doorway, that Alexander understood something profound. True strength wasn't measured in wealth, in titles, or in the power to control the world. True strength was in the ability to uplift others, to bring light into lives darkened by circumstance, and to inspire courage in the face of fear. This woman, with her simple act of devotion, had done just that. And as Lucas's laughter rang out, Right and unrestrained, Alexander felt a shift within himself. Hope, long buried beneath grief and guilt, began to stir once more. In that moment, he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they could be faced together. The bond between father and son, strengthened by the compassion and bravery of a stranger who had become their guardian angel, was unbreakable. Alexander stepped fully into the room, closing the door behind him, but the image of that laughter, the pure, radiant sound that had first stopped him in his tracks, remained imprinted in his heart. And deep down, he knew that life's most powerful moments often arrive unannounced, leaving you breathless, grateful, and changed forever. Alexander sank into the plush armchair by the window, letting the weight of the day and the surge of emotions press against him. He had been gone for a week, but in that brief absence, a lifetime of worries seemed to have accumulated. Lucas was sitting cross-legged on the floor, building an elaborate tower of colorful blocks, each piece carefully placed as if constructing a world of his own imagination. The sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows highlighted the delicate features of his son's face, cheeks flushed with excitement, eyes alive with wonder. Alexander felt a pang of both relief and guilt. Relief that Lucas was smiling again, that he had found joy in a world that had often seemed unfair. Guilt that he had not been there to see it sooner. Claire, the young caregiver who had stepped into their lives so seamlessly, was crouched beside Lucas, her hands steady and gentle. She guided his tiny fingers as he adjusted the top block of his tower, murmuring encouragement in a calm, unwavering voice. Alexander watched her, mesmerized, realizing that her presence had done something extraordinary. She had restored a sense of normalcy, a sense of play, in a boy who had faced more battles than most adults. He wanted to speak, to break the silence, but found that words failed him. How could he express the gratitude and awe he felt toward someone who had quietly transformed their home into a sanctuary of hope? Instead, he allowed himself to simply observe, to let the moment unfold. Each giggle from Lucas, each reassuring word from Claire, was a balm to his weary heart. Lucas noticed him finally, his small hands waving eagerly. "Daddy, look, I made the tallest tower ever," he exclaimed, his voice brimming with pride. Alexander forced a smile, trying to mask the lump forming in his throat. He rose and knelt beside his son, gently placing a hand on his shoulder. "It's incredible, Lucas. You're so talented," he said, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions within. Claire watched the exchange with a soft smile, then whispered to Alexander, "He's happier than I've ever seen him. The treatments have been tough, but he's resilient, and he's lucky to have a father who loves him so much." Her words struck a chord deep within him. Resilient. That was what Lucas was, what Claire was teaching him to recognize in his own son's strength, not measured by physical ability or wealth, but by the courage to keep smiling, to keep building, even when the world seemed determined to knock you down. For a moment, Alexander allowed himself to remember the days before his wife's passing, the laughter that had once filled their home, the warmth that had radiated from every corner, and the simple joy of family. It had been a long time since he had felt that closeness, that sense of unity. Yet here it was again, fragile but unmistakable, brought to life by a woman whose heart seemed to have no boundaries. When it came to caring for his son, "Daddy," Lucas said suddenly, tugging at his sleeve, "do you want to play with us?" His innocent request pierced Alexander with emotion. How many times had he missed these small moments? How many times had he been consumed by work or worry, oblivious to the world of imagination and joy that existed just a few feet away? He nodded, and for the first time in days, allowed himself to fully engage, to kneel on the floor and help Lucas place the final blocks of his tower. As they worked together, Alexander realized something profound. True courage was not just in facing danger or adversity, it was in showing up, in being present, in choosing to care when it would be easier to turn away. Claire had demonstrated that courage every day, not through grand gestures or speeches, but through patience, creativity, and unwavering commitment to Lucas's happiness. And in doing so, she had taught him, Alexander, a lesson he would never forget. The afternoon passed in a blur of laughter, games, and quiet conversations. Alexander and Claire shared small smiles, a silent acknowledgement of the bond that had formed between them, built on trust, empathy, and mutual respect. He realized that she had given him something he hadn't realized he needed: hope. Hope that, despite the trials that life had thrown at them, joy was still possible, that Lucas could still laugh freely, that he, Alexander, could still find strength in his love for his son. As the sun began to set, casting golden hues across the city skyline, Lucas grew tired and curled up on the couch with a storybook in his lap. Claire sat beside him, reading softly, her voice steady and comforting. Alexander stood by the window, watching the scene unfold, and felt a quiet determination settle within him. No matter what challenges lay ahead, no matter how uncertain the future might seem, he would not allow fear or grief to overshadow the moments of happiness that could still be found. In that quiet evening, with the city lights beginning to twinkle below, Alexander understood something that transcended wealth, status, and power. True impact, true legacy, was measured not by the money one earned or the titles one held, but by the love one fostered, the courage one inspired, and the hope one nurtured in others. Claire had illuminated that truth in ways he had never anticipated, and Lucas had become the brightest reminder that even in the darkest times, light could be found. As he finally approached the couch, kneeling beside his son and listening to Claire's soothing voice, Alexander made a silent promise. He would be present, fully and unwaveringly, for every laugh, every tear, every small victory. And together, the three of them, father, son, and the woman who had unknowingly become their guardian, would navigate life's challenges, drawing strength from one another, proving that courage, love, and hope could indeed triumph against all odds. And in that moment, Alexander realized that the world outside the penthouse walls, with all its chaos and uncertainty, seemed a little smaller, a little kinder, because of the love that now filled the room. The next morning, Alexander awoke to the soft, golden light filtering through the curtains, casting a warm glow across the room. The city below was just beginning to stir, but inside the penthouse, a different kind of energy hummed, quiet, steady, and full of promise. Lucas was already awake, sitting by the window, his small hands tracing imaginary paths on the glass, as if mapping out worlds only he could see. Claire was nearby, preparing breakfast with a calm precision that belied the chaos of the city outside. Alexander felt a tug at his heart, a mixture of awe and disbelief. Just a week ago, he had been consumed by the demands of business, the relentless pressure of deadlines, and the crushing weight of grief. Yet here he was, witnessing a different kind of triumph, the triumph of resilience, of hope, of small but profound moments of joy. Lucas turned toward him, eyes bright, and waved eagerly. "Daddy, you have to see this," he exclaimed, rushing toward the living room with the boundless energy of a child who had just discovered a new game. Alexander followed, curiosity and a spark of excitement guiding his steps. When he entered the room, he froze. Claire was sitting on the floor, surrounded by a kaleidoscope of paints, brushes, and paper. Lucas was beside her, his small hands smeared with vibrant colors. Together, they had created a scene that seemed almost magical: mountains of every hue, rivers that shimmered in impossible shades, and skies streaked with colors no one had names for. It was chaotic, yet alive. Alexander felt a lump form in his throat. He had forgotten the power of imagination, the healing force of creativity. Watching his son laugh freely, watching Claire nurture that joy, was more powerful than any boardroom victory or financial success he had ever achieved. The room pulsed with life, a stark contrast to the quiet loneliness that had dominated their home for so long. Claire noticed him and smiled, a gentle, knowing smile. "Good morning, Alexander. Lucas wanted to show you our masterpiece," she said softly. Her voice carried warmth, confidence, and a subtle strength that seemed to radiate hope itself. Lucas looked up, eyes shining. "We made it together, Daddy. Isn't it amazing?" He gestured at the explosion of colors around them, pride radiating from every line of his small body. Alexander knelt beside him, studying the artwork, and felt an unexpected surge of emotion. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't meant to be, but it was real, it was alive, and it was filled with courage, "You're incredible, Lucas," Alexander whispered, his voice thick with emotion. This is amazing. I've never seen anything like it." He turned to Claire, gratitude and admiration mingling in his gaze. "And you've done something remarkable. You've given him joy, creativity, and confidence in a week." Claire shrugged lightly, though her eyes held a quiet pride. "It's him," she said simply. "He had it in him all along. I just helped him remember it." Her words struck Alexander deeply. Sometimes the greatest gifts weren't the ones given outright, they were the ones that helped others discover their own strength. The morning passed in a blur of laughter, storytelling, and the occasional playful mess of paint. Alexander found himself joining in, rediscovering the joy of unstructured play, the thrill of imagining worlds without limits. Each moment with Lucas and Claire chipped away at the heaviness that had settled in his heart over the past 2 years. He realized that life, with all its uncertainties and losses, still held these precious, transformative moments if only one had the courage to embrace them. Later, as the sun climbed higher in the sky, Alexander stepped onto the balcony, watching the bustling streets below. He reflected on the unexpected lessons of the past week. Resilience wasn't about enduring silently. It was about finding strength in connection, in love, in moments that seemed ordinary but were extraordinary in their impact. Lucas had reminded him of that, and Claire had exemplified it. Suddenly, a knock at the door drew his attention. It was Claire, holding a small envelope. "Alexander," she said, her tone steady yet gentle, "I think this might help us with Lucas's next treatment. It's not just about medicine, it's about hope." Curiosity piqued. He opened the envelope to find a detailed plan, a collection of therapies, creative activities, and emotional exercises designed to strengthen Lucas's spirit as well as his body. Alexander felt a swell of gratitude. This wasn't just care, it was dedication, ingenuity, and a belief in the power of the human spirit. As he studied the plan, Lucas ran up to him, tugging at his sleeve. "Daddy, can we try it now? Can we do the next adventure?" His enthusiasm was infectious, his trust absolute. Alexander felt a surge of determination. He would face every challenge alongside his son, drawing strength from his resilience, from Claire's unwavering support, and from the unshakable bond they shared. That evening, as the city lights shimmered below, Alexander reflected on the journey they were embarking upon. Life would not be without obstacles, but for the first time in years, he felt prepared. He had witnessed courage in the smallest of acts, hope blossoming in unexpected places, and love that transcended circumstance. And as Lucas drifted off to sleep later that night, Claire sitting quietly beside him, Alexander whispered a silent promise. No matter what storms lay ahead, he would nurture, protect, and celebrate every moment of joy. Because in the laughter, in the creativity, in the resilience of a small child, and the dedication of a remarkable caregiver, he had discovered the most profound truth of all: life's true victories were measured not in wealth or status, but in the courage to hope, the strength to love, and the ability to embrace the extraordinary in every ordinary day. The next morning, Alexander awoke to the quiet hum of the city below, but something in the apartment felt different. The air carried a sense of anticipation, subtle yet undeniable, as if the day itself held a secret waiting to unfold. Lucas was already awake, bouncing around in the living room, his boundless energy amplified by the sense of excitement he could barely contain. Claire was nearby, her calm presence anchoring the whirlwind of motion and laughter. But today felt like more than just another ordinary morning. It felt like a turning point. Alexander dressed quickly and made his way to the living room, where Lucas was attempting to build a new tower, taller and more intricate than the one they had created yesterday. Paint, blocks, and scattered toys were strewn across the floor. Yet there was method in the chaos. Lucas's eyes lit up when he saw his father enter. "Daddy, look, this one's even bigger. Can you help me?" he shouted, his small hands waving excitedly. Alexander knelt beside him, gently placing a hand on his son's shoulder. "Of course, Lucas. Let's build it together," he said, his voice steady yet filled with emotion. He realized in that moment that this simple act, sitting on the floor, playing with his son, was more meaningful than any deal, any contract, any achievement he had ever pursued. It was a chance to be present, to connect, to heal not just Lucas's body but both their hearts. Claire joined them, kneeling beside the boy with a warm smile. "I thought we could try something new today," she suggested, holding a small set of figurines she had brought in from a box. "These are heroes like the ones in your storybooks. Each one has a challenge, and together they find a way to overcome it." Lucas's eyes widened. "Heroes like me, yes, like you, Claire," said softly, "and like your dad, and me. We all have a hero inside, even when things feel impossible." Alexander felt a lump in his throat. The words resonated deeply. For 2 years, he had struggled to find courage amid loss, to protect his son while keeping his own heart intact. And here was Claire, teaching him a lesson he hadn't realized he needed. Heroism wasn't about fame or fortune. It was about perseverance, kindness, and the unwavering belief that challenges could be faced together. They spent the morning weaving stories around the figurines, turning each challenge into an adventure. Lucas laughed freely, unburdened by fear or worry, and Alexander found himself swept up in the joy. The tower of blocks, once the centerpiece of their play, became a fortress for the heroes, symbolizing resilience and imagination. Each act of creativity, each burst of laughter, reminded Alexander of a truth he had almost forgotten. The smallest moments could hold the greatest power. Later, Claire suggested a walk to the rooftop garden. "Fresh air, sunlight, and a little movement, it will do wonders," she said. Alexander agreed, and together, they carried Lucas up the wide spiral staircase that led to the open terrace. The city stretched below them, alive with energy, but here above it all there was calm, a sense of perspective. Lucas ran to the edge, his hands gripping the railing, eyes wide with wonder at the sprawling skyline. "Daddy, look at the city. It's so big," Lucas exclaimed, spinning around in delight. Alexander laughed, feeling a lightness he hadn't felt in years. "It is, Lucas, but even in a city this big, we can find our own little world, full of heroes and adventures," he said. He realized that life was a series of such moments that demanded courage, attention, and love. And the heroes in these moments weren't only fictional, they were real. His son, Claire, and even himself, learning to show up and embrace life despite the shadows of fear. As they sat together on a bench, watching the world below, Claire spoke softly. "Alexander, sometimes the hardest battles aren't the ones you see. They're the ones fought in silence, in the heart. And Lucas, he's teaching us all how to fight with hope instead of fear." Her words struck Alexander deeply. He realized she was right. Hope wasn't passive, it was active. A choice made every day to face challenges with courage and love. Lucas embodied that hope, and Claire had nurtured it, helping him discover strength he didn't know he had. Alexander felt a determination solidify within him, a commitment to honor that resilience in every decision he made. The afternoon passed with a blend of play, conversation, and quiet reflection. Alexander found himself sharing stories from his childhood, tales of mistakes, triumphs, and lessons learned. Claire listened attentively, encouraging Lucas to ask questions and explore ideas. The three of them became a small ecosystem of learning, support, and joy, each interaction reinforcing the lesson that life's greatest victories were measured not by wealth or status, but by the courage to love, to nurture, and to hope. As evening approached, the sky painted with hues of gold and pink, Alexander felt a profound sense of clarity. The week had shown him what truly mattered: presence, connection, and the courage to embrace life fully, even when the path was uncertain. He had been reminded that the human spirit could thrive even in adversity, and that love, unconditional, patient, and enduring, was the most transformative force of all. That night, as Lucas fell asleep in Claire's gentle care, Alexander stood by the window, looking out at the city lights flickering below. He reflected on the lessons of the day, that heroes could be found in unexpected places, that courage often manifested in quiet actions, and that hope could illuminate even the darkest corners of life. And in that moment, he made a promise to himself and his son to honor every moment of joy, to embrace challenges with determination, and to never underestimate the power of love, courage, and resilience, because life's greatest victories weren't measured by what you had, but by the lives you touched, the hope you inspired, and the courage you found in the face of uncertainty. And in that apartment, high above the city, Alexander realized that they were just beginning to uncover the extraordinary potential. Within their ordinary days, the following morning, Alexander awoke to an unexpected quiet. For the first time in days, the apartment felt still, not in the suffocating way of loneliness, but in a peaceful, anticipatory silence, as if the world itself was holding its breath for what was to come. Lucas was already awake, but instead of his usual energetic bursts, he sat at the window, gazing thoughtfully at the city below. Claire was nearby, preparing a simple breakfast, her calm movements carrying an unspoken reassurance. There was a sense that today was different, significant, and Alexander felt a surge of curiosity mixed with a hint of apprehension. As he approached Lucas, the boy turned, his eyes shining with a seriousness that made Alexander pause. "Daddy," Lucas said softly, "today we're going on a big adventure. Claire says it's going to be special." The boy's voice, filled with a mixture of excitement and determination, tugged at Alexander's heart. He realized that this adventure wasn't just a game, it was an opportunity for growth, courage, and perhaps a lesson that could transform them all. Claire smiled at Alexander, holding out a small backpack filled with supplies, water, snacks, a notebook, and colored pencils. "It's time for Lucas to explore a different kind of world today," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "Not just a world of imagination, but one where he can face challenges, make decisions, and see the results of his courage." Alexander's curiosity piqued. "What do you mean?" he asked, trying to keep his voice calm while his mind raced with possibilities. Claire gestured toward the door. "You'll see, today isn't about staying safe in the apartment. It's about discovering what Lucas is capable of, and how he and both of you together can rise to challenges you might not have thought possible." Lucas grabbed Alexander's hand, his small grip surprisingly firm and confident. "Come on, Daddy. It's going to be amazing." The city streets were bustling with activity, but for Alexander, the world seemed to shrink to the three of them: father, son, and the woman who had brought light and hope into their lives. Claire guided them to a local community center where children of all abilities were gathered, engaging in activities designed to foster teamwork, creativity, and resilience. Alexander's heart swelled as he saw the joy and determination on Lucas's face. "Today, we're going to work together," Claire explained. "There will be obstacles, but each one you overcome will show you how strong you really are." Lucas nodded eagerly, and Alexander found himself inspired by his son's courage. The first activity was a simple, but surprisingly challenging obstacle course. Lucas hesitated for a moment at the starting line, uncertainty flickering across his face. Claire knelt beside him, whispering words of encouragement, while Alexander offered a steadying hand. "You can do this, Lucas. I'll be right here with you." As Lucas navigated the course, Alexander watched with a mix of awe and pride. Every step, every careful movement was a testament to his resilience, his determination to face challenges despite fear. Claire's encouragement and guidance were gentle but firm, giving him the support he needed without taking away his sense of accomplishment. By the time Lucas reached the finish line, his face was flushed with exertion, but his eyes sparkled with triumph. "You did it, Lucas. That was amazing," Alexander exclaimed, lifting his son into a hug. Lucas laughed, the sound bright and free, and Alexander felt an overwhelming wave of emotion. This was more than just a game, it was a lesson in courage, in perseverance, in believing in oneself even when the path seemed uncertain. The day continued with a series of activities designed to challenge both body and mind: problem solving, games, creative art projects, and collaborative exercises with other children. Alexander found himself participating fully, rediscovering the joy of learning alongside his son, the thrill of seeing resilience and courage unfold in real time. Each moment reinforced a lesson he had begun to understand over the past week. True strength was nurtured through experience, guidance, and love. By the afternoon, Lucas was exhausted but exhilarated. Claire guided him and Alexander to a quiet corner of the center, where they could reflect on the day's lessons. "You see, Alexander," Claire said softly, It's not about being perfect or never failing. It's about showing up, trying your best, and learning from every step. That's how heroes are made. Alexander nodded, understanding the depth of her words. He realized that this day, this adventure, had given him more than just memories. It had offered insight into how to nurture courage, resilience, and hope in his son, and how to embody those qualities himself. As they walked home, hand in hand, Lucas chatting animatedly about his accomplishments, Alexander felt a profound shift within himself. The city below continued to hum with activity, but for him, the focus had narrowed to what truly mattered: love, presence, and the courage to embrace life fully, even in the face of uncertainty. That evening, as they sat together in the living room, Alexander reflected on the day's lessons. He realized that while the world could be unpredictable, daunting, and even harsh, there was an incredible power in facing challenges with an open heart and unwavering support. Lucas had shown him that courage could come in small but transformative ways, and Claire had demonstrated the strength of guidance, patience, and belief in others. And as Lucas drifted off to sleep, his small hand clutching Alexander's, the millionaire understood something he had never truly grasped before. The greatest victories were not measured by success, wealth, or accolades, but by the ability to inspire hope, nurture resilience, and cultivate love. Those were the true marks of heroism, and he was determined to honor them in every moment, every decision, and every day that lay ahead. Asterisk. The morning sun streamed through the curtains, bathing the penthouse in a warm, golden light that seemed to promise new beginnings. Alexander awoke with a sense of purpose, a quiet determination coursing through him. Today felt monumental, different from any day that had come before. Lucas, sensing the energy in the apartment, bounced into the living room, his small feet padding across the floor, eyes sparkling with excitement. Claire followed, calm yet radiating her usual quiet strength, carrying a small box filled with supplies for what she had promised would be their biggest adventure yet. Alexander felt a surge of curiosity and anticipation. "What's the plan today?" he asked. Though he knew the answer would involve challenges, laughter, and growth, Claire smiled knowingly. Today, Lucas will face a challenge that will teach him about courage, compassion, and the power of believing in himself. It's a journey for all of us, really an opportunity to discover just how strong our hearts can be. Lucas's eyes widened. A journey? Are we going on a real adventure? Daddy. His small hands gripped Alexander's tightly, a mixture of trust and excitement shining in his gaze. Alexander knelt to meet his son's eyes. "Yes, Lucas, we're going to do this together, and I promise I'll be with you every step of the way." They arrived at a local park where a community event had been organized, designed to challenge children in ways that encourage resilience, teamwork, and problem-solving. Obstacles awaited: balance beams, climbing walls, and puzzles that required both thought and cooperation. But this time, the stakes felt higher. Alexander could see it in Lucas's posture, the way his small hands clenched with determination, and the focus in his eyes. "Remember," Claire said, kneeling beside Lucas, "it's not about winning or finishing first. It's about trying, believing, and never giving up, even when it feels hard." Her words, simple yet profound, resonated deeply with Alexander. They were lessons he himself had needed to hear over the past 2 years, lessons he had only begun to understand fully. In the presence of his son and Claire, Lucas started the course, carefully navigating the balance beam while Alexander followed closely behind. Each step was deliberate, each movement a testament to courage and determination. When he faltered, Claire offered gentle guidance, her voice steady and reassuring. Alexander felt a swelling pride in his chest. He had never seen his son demonstrate such tenacity, such unwavering resolve in the face of difficulty. As they progressed through the challenges, a pattern emerged. Lucas encountered obstacles that initially seemed impossible. Yet with encouragement, careful thought, and support from both Alexander and Claire, he overcame each one. His confidence grew with every success, and Alexander felt a profound sense of awe. Here was a child who had faced illness, fear, and uncertainty, yet he stood tall, fearless in spirit, and radiant with hope. Midway through the course, A particularly daunting climbing wall loomed before them. Lucas hesitated, staring up at the height with wide eyes. I don't know if I can do it," he admitted, voice trembling. Alexander knelt beside him, placing his hands on the boy's shoulders. "Lucas, I believe in you. You are stronger than you know. Take it one step at a time. I'll be right here every step of the way," Claire added softly. "Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's moving forward even when you're scared. And you've got more courage than anyone I've ever met." With that, Lucas began to climb, slowly and carefully, his small hands gripping each hold with determination. Alexander followed, supporting him, encouraging him, feeling the bond between father and son deepen with every upward movement. At the top, Lucas reached out to grasp Alexander's hand, and together they stood triumphantly, overlooking the park below. The sense of accomplishment radiated from the boy, and Alexander felt tears prick his eyes, not from sadness, but from the sheer power of witnessing resilience, courage, and love in its purest form. The day continued with laughter, teamwork, and a series of smaller challenges, each one designed to teach patience, empathy, and perseverance. By the afternoon, Lucas was exhausted, but glowing with pride. Alexander realized that the lessons of the day extended far beyond the obstacles themselves. They were lessons of life, that courage could be nurtured, that hope could flourish even in adversity, and that love, steady, patient, and unwavering, was the most powerful force of all. As the sun began to set, casting a warm orange glow across the city skyline, the three of them sat together on a bench overlooking the park. Lucas leaned against Alexander, still flushed from exertion, while Claire watched silently, a satisfied smile on her face. The moment felt sacred, a quiet acknowledgement of all they had endured and all they had learned together. Alexander took a deep breath, reflecting on the journey they had shared over the past week. He realized that life's most profound victories were rarely measured by wealth, status, or material success. True victory lay in nurturing hope, inspiring courage, and embracing the moments that allowed love to flourish. In Lucas, he had witnessed a hero in miniature, brave beyond measure. In Claire, he had discovered a guiding force, a beacon of compassion and resilience. And within himself, he had found strength he hadn't realized existed, a strength born from love, presence, and unwavering commitment to his son. That night, as Lucas slept peacefully, Alexander stood by the window, looking out at the city lights twinkling below. He whispered a silent promise to cherish every laugh, to embrace every challenge, and to lead with courage, compassion, and hope. The journey was far from over, but he knew that together they could face whatever lay ahead. And in the quiet of that penthouse high above the bustling city, Alexander understood a truth that would stay with him forever. The greatest achievements were not counted in wealth or accolades, but in the lives touched, the hope inspired, and the courage nurtured. Lucas's laughter, Claire's unwavering support, and his own presence had created a legacy far more valuable than any fortune, a legacy of love, resilience, and unshakable hope. And in that moment, Alexander felt a peace he had not known for years, a certainty that the future, uncertain, challenging, and unpredictable, was also full of promise, beauty, and extraordinary possibilities.